energy cost and reliability issues. Obviously, data center impacts on air quality and heating events and flooding in equity emphasis areas. Equinol will continue to do some outreach to mid-June and finalize their findings by June 30th. And a second approach to the EV or Environmental Justice Toolkit is we also reached out to local governments that do environmental justice work. And so COG staff is responsible for that, and their consultant did the community outreach. And we are combining that feedback, and we'll have a final Environmental Justice Toolkit hopefully by the end of the year. At our May 19th meeting, we also heard from ICF Consultant on the CPRG Comprehensive Climate Action Plan and the results of the work that we're doing on data center measures. Again, data centers is coming up. We've been doing a lot of work in that area. And finally, hopefully you all are aware that the Climate and Energy Leadership Awards program launched on Earth Day. We are in our 12th year of the program. This year, we're going to give out 5 awards, 2 in the government category, 1 for small jurisdictions, less than 90,000 people, and then 1 for larger jurisdictions over 90,000. 2 in the NGO category for nonprofit and 1 for for-profit. And then finally, the third category is the educational institution, and that will be 1 award. Applications again are due on June 30th. And our next meeting is July 21st, where ACPAC members will be judging the award. So we're really trying to keep up the momentum in that program and get over 20 applications. Again, we've been doing that for the last 3 or 4 years. So please, I believe that it's posted on the committee website. So you can reach out to me if you have any questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Boggs. I see Mr. Washburn joined us, coming in late from CPC. Anything to add, Mr. Washburn?
Let's see. Nothing. I'm having a little issue getting a taskbar to go down.
Well, Chair Washburn, I just gave the update.
I just heard you gave a report on the leadership awards program, so I don't have anything to add to that.
Okay, well, I'm glad you made it over here. So next we have Clean Air Partners. Jen Desimone will cover that.
Great, thanks so much. Clean Air Partners kicked off their summer campaign during Air Quality Awareness Week, which is always the first week of May. And they did that with an announcement of a gas-powered lawn equipment exchange. And this is the second year that Clean Air Partners has done that type of exchange. Residents were able to sign up to bring in gas-powered equipment into a number of participating ACE hardware stores in exchange for new electric equipment. And the available equipment for the exchange included lawnmowers, it included weed trimmers, and also leaf blowers. And all of the gas-powered equipment that was dropped off is taken to a recycler to be properly disposed of. So we have 2 weekends for the exchange itself. The first weekend was last weekend, May 24th and 25th. And then we have another weekend coming up for the exchange, which is the weekend of June 7th through 8th. So over the course of this entire initiative, we are anticipating exchanging approximately 450 pieces of gas-powered equipment, and we currently have a wait list of over 1,500 residents. So we have quite a good demand for this type of program. So in addition to the exchange, the campaign was also accompanied by a number of different events, and those events were Clean Air Partners and also sponsored events. They were pop-up events and then also larger events where we have our backyard bubble display. And the whole idea around the event is to educate the public about ways they can reduce emissions related to lawn and gardening. So some of the events that we had an event with Alexandria back in early May. We have a number of events with Fairfax County. We were at the Reston Farmers Market, the Lorton Farmers Market. Last weekend, we were at the Fairfax Ace Hardware Store. We will be with Fairfax County again in another week or so at the Healthy Together Fairfax event. We were with DOEE at an event this past weekend at Frager's Hardware. So a number of different events that have also been taking place in conjunction with the exchange. So moving forward through the summer, the month of August will be designated as Ozone Action Month. And that month is all going to be around educating residents about transportation and how they can reduce their vehicle emissions. So we'll have our car bubble exhibit at various places around the region, and also more than likely our pop-ups as well. And then also during the month of August, we are working with Alexandria to host a more of a miniature kind of lawn tool exchange event specifically for their residents during that month. So we'll have more details on that to come. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Jen. So last on the committee reports, we have the Climate, Energy, and Environmental Policy Committee. Jeff King.
Yes, thanks, Chair Denoga. Sorry I was a little late. CPC ran over. We just had our Climate, Energy, Environment Policy Committee meeting this morning. On the agenda was the work program budget, the fiscal year 26 work program budget, which was adopted. We also got a legislative update from the recently closed Virginia and Maryland sessions. So got kind of an overview of what transpired there. We also, CPC asked us, and this will be on this agenda later on, is the federal regulatory outlook. But CPC took action to instruct staff to prepare a letter to send to the Senate related to the investment tax credit for renewables. So we're going to be working on that. And finally, or two other topics. One was we got a really nice presentation from our TPP staff on the bike and pedestrian planning activities in the region. So a lot of engagement there is, ways to reduce VMT, particularly looking at the National Capital Bike Trail Network and what sorts of investments are needed there. And then finally, Maya Davis on our team did an installment of our mid-course review update, presenting preliminary results from a local government survey to kind of assess what actions are being taken at the local level under the climate action planning work. So that's my update. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Let's see. So now we're going to move on to item 3, local and state updates. So this is the opportunity for local and state members to share information on their jurisdiction's activities. First, we're going to hear from the local jurisdictions. Do Maryland members have updates they'd like to share? Maryland going once? How about Virginia local jurisdictions?
I got one, and you made me realize that Chair Bagley from CPC made an announcement at the end of the CPC meeting that they recently passed the ban on gas-powered leaf blowers, and gave thanks to Montgomery County and DC for their leadership. And so yet another jurisdiction taking action on a gas-powered lawn equipment.
Great. Now I feel guilty. We'll have to catch up. Tough budget year. Okay, let's hear from the state air agencies. First, District of Columbia.
We don't have any specific updates we need to provide today.
Okay, thanks, Joseph. What about Maryland air agencies?
We don't have any updates either.
Okay, Virginia.
Actually, we have two very quick updates. We have recently put out our 2010 SO2 state implementation plan and associated permit for a source in Giles County that was violating that standard. It's currently going again under public review, and then will be submitted to EPA for approval. Likewise, our second regional haze plan is also available out for public comment and review. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on to item number 4. So in February, staff began developing the FY 2026 work program, coordinating with both the budget and technical advisory committees. So the work program provides details that specify MWAQ's objectives, core program areas, and deliverables for the upcoming fiscal year. Jen Decima will now present the FY 2026 MWAQ work program, and then we'll take action to approve it. So Jennifer.
Great, thanks so much. Yes, so today we're going to be talking about the FY 26 work program and budget. And this budget covers the work that will be completed during July 1 of this year through June 30th of next year. So how I have broken up the presentation, I'm going to first go over some of the priorities that are in the work program. And then we'll talk about the numbers. I'll go over the revenues and expenses, and then do a brief overview of some high-level tasks that are in each of our core work program areas. Thank you, Snail. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about are the priorities for the upcoming fiscal year. So this year we have a number of priorities, but one of the main ones that we're going to be focusing on is work related to the 2015 ozone standard, in particular, developing a redesignation request and maintenance plan. So we have had some good news on this front. We have been waiting on EPA for a number of decisions, which we have received. Actually, we received them last month and they are effective as of early this month. So EPA did officially state that the region has attained the standard for the 2015 ozone standard. They did make a determination that we have clean data, and then they also approved an exceptional events request that had to do with data, specifically exceedances for ozone due to the wildfires. So all of those actions have kind of given us a kind of full-on green light to go ahead and move forward with this redesignation request and maintenance plan for the 2015 ozone standard. So that you will see as I start going through and as we start talking about some of the core work program areas, it really hits on all of the main core work program areas and all of the work that we're going to be focusing on for this upcoming year. So in addition to the work that has to do with developing the plan, staff is also going to be supporting conformity for ozone, and we will be coordinating very closely with TPB staff. TPB is currently working on a conformity analysis, so this will be coming to MWAQ for their comments later on this year.
Okay.
Oh, can we mute? Thank you. So that will be another thing that we will be focused on for this upcoming fiscal year. In addition to that, we'll also be continuing our work to track all of the monitoring data for ozone and fine particles. This is something that, that we do to make sure that the region continues to meet the standards. And we also report all of this information, not only to MWAQ, but we also report this to the public as well. As you all are pretty aware, there have been a number of actions on the federal level that we've already seen so far this year. So we will be continuing to monitor that, closely paying attention to any of the rules that may be coming down the pike that could be up for reconsideration and potential impacts on our region, and then also determining what, if any, we want to make comments on as well. You're going to hear on some of those later on today's agenda. And then lastly, I wanted to mention communication. We do have communication as one of the priorities within the work program. And this is to communicate all of the good work that MWAQ is doing, but also the good news in terms of the progress that we have met in the region regarding the improvements in air quality. So we have a number of different things that we do throughout the year to kind of get that message out. Next slide. Okay, so we're going to move on to the revenues or funding contributions. So MWAC is funded a third from our local members, a third from the transportation through the state DOTs, and that's through TPP funding, and then a third from the state air agencies. So for FY 2026, the requested budget is approximately $606,000. So that would be about $202,000 each. So this is it's about a little over a 2.5% increase when we compare that to our FY 2025 budget. One thing I do want to mention is that the transportation funding is contingent on approval of the Unified Planning and Work Program. TPB has submitted that plan to the USDOT. The USDOT does have to approve it. So we are expecting that that will be done sometime by the end of June, by the end of the current fiscal year. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to go through now, I'm going to start going more into detail in each of the core work program areas, and there are 6 of them. So we'll take a look at the expenses for each of the work program areas, and then I'm just going to kind of hit the high points on what's included in each. So next slide, please. Okay, so this is a breakdown of each of the core work program areas and the budget for each of them. So this table shows how much of the budget is for staff, how much is for direct costs, and then our total costs, and then the percent of the budget for each of the core work program areas. The main thing I just want to note here is you can see how each of the core work program areas breaks down in regards to percent of budget. The first 3 work program areas. So our emissions inventory, are the control measures piece, and then the conformity mobile emissions. That's where a bulk of the technical work kind of resides, and that is about 2/3 of the overall budget. And then we have public participation, MWAC support, which is all of the committee support, and then our project work program management. Those last 3 makes up the final 1/3 of the budget. So we can move to the next slide, where you'll see a comparison of each of the core work program areas, the numbers for FY 2026 and how that compares to the approved budgets for FY 2025. And you can see some have gone up, some have gone down. Just the main thing that I just want to note on this is the differences have to do with just shifting staff around. So that's kind of where you're seeing the pluses and some of the minuses on that. But overall, again, roughly a 2.5% increase to the total core work program. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so these next few slides are each of the work program areas and a breakdown of just some of the highlights that are included in each of them. These first 2 slides I've talked a bit about already in terms of what is included in them, so I'm going to go over that pretty quickly. Again, these first 3 main core work program areas is where all the technical work is done. So everything that has to do with the bulk of putting together the redesignation request and the maintenance plan for the 2015 ozone standard. So you'll see within the emissions inventory development, that's all the work that goes into putting together the inventories required for the plan. We do have some other tasks within here as well. So for example, for the inventory one, we have staff that participates in outside groups as well, and also conferences to make sure they have the training that's needed for that. In the control measures piece of that, in the control measures core work program area, within here we have developing what is needed for the contingency measures to put into the plan itself. So again, work that is required, that is needed to support the plan and to go into the final plan. But also within the regional control measures group, this is where we have time set aside and funding set aside to assist our local members in helping them identify or put together any policies or projects to reduce emissions, to improve air quality within their communities. Within the regional control measures piece as well, we have our task to track all of the federal actions that are taking place. And then of course, working with some other policy boards as well. The next slide, please. This next core work program area is all about transportation conformity and mobile emissions. And again, just kind of reiterating and going back to the bulk of this work has to do with putting together all of the mobile emissions that are needed for the plan. And then I already mentioned supporting the conformity analysis as well. So this is, again, very, all of the technical work that has to do with the coordination with the transportation. Next slide. So this last slide here are our final 3 work program areas. So the first one here is public participation. So within this core area, we have support for ACPAC, the Air and Climate Public Advisory Committee. Within here as well is where we start getting into that communications piece of things. So putting together opportunities for leadership, for MWAC leadership, for staff as well, to get out there and do some outreach in regards to putting our good message out to the public. Those can be done through a number of different ways. We've done media interviews in the past. We've put together social content. We've done videos. We've done newsletters. So there's a lot of different avenues that can take place. And we work very closely with COG's Office of Communications to do that. Within here as well is also putting together any materials that will need to support that. So we often do press releases a few times a year. We have an air quality dashboard on the COG website that is updated throughout the year as well. So that falls under kind of this whole public participation area. Under MWAC support, the 5th core work program area, this is everything that has to do with supporting all of the committees and subcommittees, and also all of the new member outreach that we do. So just kind of think of this as all inclusive for all of the committee support that we do. And then the last one, which is our program management. This within here has to do with implementing and managing the FY 2026 work program, developing the work program for the following fiscal year, all of the financial work that we need to do, invoicing, and then just any ongoing program support. That all falls under program management. So with that, we can move, thanks. Now the final slide. So the process itself that we do when we start developing the work program to get it to where we are now, it does go for review to the budget committee. That took place in March. It did go to the technical advisory committee in April for their sign off for MWAC approval. So now we are here today, and we will be opening up for discussion and asking for MWAC's approval for the FY26 work program.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Does anyone have any questions for her about the work program and budget? Not hearing any. Can we get a motion to approve the work plan and budget?
Snyder moves approval of the work plan and budget, and just I'm particularly pleased with the additional work on federal related issues and also helping local jurisdictions improve their air quality. And I think both of those are embedded. And finally, getting the word out more to the public that their investment in us is actually resulting in cleaner air than would otherwise be the case. So thanks.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Can we get a second?
This is Kristen Mink. I'll second and also second those comments by Member Snyder, and we'll note also on the public participation side that some of what we learned in the EJ subcommittee and did there in terms of outreach would be great to incorporate in this space as well, with the direct outreach to community groups and nonprofits to bring in communities that would not normally respond to more generalized outreach.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Anybody else have any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Not hearing anyone. The ayes. Any abstentions? Okay, not hearing any. The motion passes. Thank you all. Thank you, Jennifer. And let's move on to item number 5. So this is the update of the MWAC's environmental justice work. And over the past year and a half, MWAC has been focusing on developing a framework on how members can include environmental justice in their policies and programs. The EJ subcommittee, with the assistance of AECOM, has led this initiative. And today, Kristen Mink, EJ subcommittee co-chair, will present the final draft resource guide. And then we will have a vote to endorse the document. Ms. Mink.
Great, thank you. First, want to give a huge thanks to everybody who sat on the subcommittee. It was a lot of meetings, a lot of great discussions, a lot of great participation, as well as to the staff who did a fantastic job. It's been a great process, and excited to talk with you all today about what we've come up with thus far. So, shall we embark on the first slide here? So our mission was to develop an action plan to assist members at all levels on how to consider equity at EJ when implementing our air quality policies, projects, and programs. So we did a lot of public participation, sought input from a lot of different stakeholders, including MWAC, ACPAC, TAC, and community members as well. To be very clear, this is all voluntary. This is a resource, but we hope that it's something that can be very tangible and useful to both members as well as community members in their advocacy. Next slide. So we had monthly meetings, received presentations on hyperlocal monitoring projects, got significant public input and community feedback, which was incorporated regularly, and also had public feedback during our meetings as well, at both the beginning and the end of the meetings, and ended up with a very complete list, prioritized list of strategies and actions that could be taken at both the local and state levels to address air quality issues in communities that have been historically disfavored or overburdened. So the list was informed, as stated, by public comment, which was provided to the subcommittee, both inside and outside of those meetings, and we made changes and adaptations from meeting to meeting. Key points that came up were on how we were doing public engagement in general. We really worked to reach deeper into the communities and bring more voices to the table. Lots of discussion on air monitoring, on emission sources, air pollutants, community health risks, and then the action plan itself, control measures, permits, etc. Next slide. So it's been renamed the resource guide for air quality action to make clear what the intent of the document is. And it includes the following sections: air quality in the region, equity and EJ, strategies to improve air quality, recommended actions, and a call to action. Next slide. And the full guide, the full draft can be found on the MWAC website, so available to both members here, but also members of the public as well. So air quality in the region. That first chapter provides a foundation for the rest of the plan, covering key pollutants, sources, monitoring, regulation control methods, and regional trends. So kind of a where we are now section. Moving on to equity and environmental justice. This highlights the purpose, really, of the EJ subcommittee and what we're doing here, highlighting the disproportionate impact of air pollution on underserved communities, and it emphasizes the need for inclusive and equitable policies. Key points include the uneven distribution of pollution, health disparities, equity-focused policies, community engagement, regulatory integration, and monitoring and accountability. Next slide. Then we get to the strategies to improve air quality, and this is really the meat and potatoes of the document. It's in a long list format, and again, that list was informed by many different stakeholders, and we tried to be very, very inclusive. So if we heard an idea that was coming up a few times, we tried to make sure that that was included in the document, along with some information that would allow members and community members to analyze: is this something that makes sense for us to pursue in my jurisdiction at this time? So improving air quality monitoring, pretty fundamental to being able to figure out what needs to be done from there. fostering stronger partnerships, improving air quality regulations, increasing public outreach and education about these issues, reducing emissions from stationary sources, reducing vehicle emissions, and promoting land use planning. And if you take a look at the document, you'll see that this is all broken down into much more specific line items with information about each. Next slide. So recommended actions are divided up into different priority levels, and noting that some may be high priority but unaffordable at certain times or in certain jurisdictions. Also, the priority levels may, and some of the variables that you would use to determine whether to pursue a policy change or regulatory change, that's going to vary a little bit from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but again, intended as a guide for folks to use. So high priority actions include advocating for stronger ambient air quality standards, facilitating knowledge sharing of success stories, enhancing enforcement of fugitive dust and pollution sources, requiring additional controls at stationary point sources, retrofit diesel vehicles and transition fleets to zero emission vehicles, promoting public transportation and the reduction of idling of heavy duty vehicles, and increased air quality monitoring. In the medium and low priority actions, and to be clear, if they made the list, they're still important. We felt that they still needed to be on the list, but advising people to take a look at those high priority actions first to see what's doable and what makes sense for your jurisdiction. So here for medium and low, we have deploy hyperlocal and mobile air quality monitors, develop new local voluntary bundle measures, educate the public on data center control measures, evaluate local land use zoning for pollution sources, limit highway expansion projects in impacted areas, increase jurisdictional control and incorporate EJ into SIPs, reduce vehicle miles traveled for public transportation, and partner with health departments and expand hyperlocal monitoring partnerships. And I think important to note also that as folks look through this resource guide and take a look at the recommended actions, that there's also indicators of who has power to make some of these changes, who the actions are intended for. Some of those actions are actions that MWAC as a body could take. So those might be some that we could look at together in the coming year or more. Others are for local jurisdictions, state jurisdictions, etc. Next slide. And then in the call to action, next slide. We have enhanced air quality monitoring, expand monitoring systems and public outreach efforts, implement the targeted policies focusing on stationary sources and integrating air quality considerations into land use planning, strengthening regulations, so updating and enforcing stricter air quality standards, fostering regional partnerships, promoting sustainable transportation, raising public awareness, and coordinating those efforts across jurisdictions and advocating for regional investments in sustainable infrastructure. The revision process we used included written feedback that came from listening sessions, public comments during the subcommittee meetings, and then feedback from COG members and staff, as well as ACPAC, TAC, and our other stakeholders. As noted, we renamed it to the resource guide because this is voluntary. And we added local case studies of successful projects in air quality hotspots to really give folks a good idea of what's attainable and what might be doable. And we elevated air quality monitoring. That was to high priority. That was a recent change that we made, noting that air quality monitoring, the expansion there can be expensive and difficult to do. Different jurisdictions are in different places with that, but that it is fundamental to the work. And if there are any, I first would like to invite any members of the subcommittee who want to add any comments, and then open it up for questions from MWAC members.
Co-Chairman Dave Snyder, just a quick thank you. The other co-chairs and all the members of the committee. I think the title reflects where we are right now. This project was started under one federal administration and completed under another with very different sort of federal directions. We realize the legal and regulatory barriers that may be in place, but we also think that the air quality of the entire region can best be addressed by dealing with pollution, especially in the most heavily polluted areas. We all share the same air and should all share the same solutions to better air quality. So that's the foundation of this report. And I want to thank everybody involved, especially our citizens who contributed so much, and our consultants and all the members of the subcommittee. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Any questions? Not hearing any. I want to thank all the co-chairs, but frankly, everybody. The public was heavily engaged in this. We had great committee members, great staff support, consultant support. This has been a real project, but worthwhile, very worthwhile. So if not hearing any more questions, I'll turn to Mr. Snyder. Did you have a motion?
Thank you. I would move that MWAC accept and endorse the report of the Environmental Justice Subcommittee.
I would second.
Okay, we have a motion to accept and endorse the resource guide for air quality action. Any discussion on the motion? So seeing none, all those in favor signify or just say yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Mr. Chair, this is Tom Blue from the Virginia DEQ. Again, I do want to commend the committee on their work. This document has come a long way. Unfortunately, DEQ cannot provide us endorsement to the document because we are still reviewing and briefing our management on that document, and that has not been completed yet. So we have to abstain at this moment.
Understood. Thank you. Okay, with
Mr.
that,
Chairman,
yes.
this is Jim Ponicello from Virginia, Department of Transportation, and for the reasons Tom had noted, VDOT would like to abstain as well.
That's 2 abstentions, understood. Mr. Blue, you can put your hand down. Anyone else? Okay, thanks to everybody. We will move on to item number 6. Jeff King is going to brief us on regulations that the federal government has announced that are under reconsideration. Mr. King?
Yes, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so a lot to cover here. Before I get started, just to put out a request. So, given the historical role of MWAC in the region, and given the extent and magnitude of possible changes coming on at both the the legislative front, the regulatory front, I am asking for your guidance as through this conversation today as to how active the committee would like to be in terms of letting your thoughts be known to those who are involved with this, sending comment letters and other things, where you might want to keep your powder dry, what you want to go on the record forcefully and strongly, to make a difference in possible outcomes of some of these proposals. So just wanted to flag that, and certainly, we have the states on the call today. They likely have some additional information, particularly as it relates to the EPA. They have a special relationship with EPA, so they may have some inside knowledge of certain aspects of this. So wanted to encourage Tom and Roger and Joseph to chime in and interrupt anytime if you have some relevant information to share. And that goes for anyone. If anyone wants to interrupt at any time with questions or opinions, please do. So I'm going to start here with a couple actions out of the Senate. One where we still could make a difference. I mentioned at the beginning, the Senate is looking at the budget. And in the current budget that came out of the House, there is they're basically repealing the investment tax credit for renewables. And we feel that that's a pretty big deal. It really could put a massive damper on all of the solar projects out there. Interestingly, side point, given the possible loss of that incentive, there's actually a rush now to get solar projects installed. So in the near term, it may actually be a good thing and get a lot of projects in the hopper soon. But over the long term, clearly not something we support. In the case of the Senate ITC, CPC is definitely going to be sending a letter. So that's covered there. And the other one that I think was troubling to see, and you guys have probably seen the news, the Senate took action on the California waivers, and there were three that were impacted there. It's not a totally done deal, and that California has already signaled they're going to sue about this. And as you may have heard, there's definitely some oddity with how the Senate's doing it, and so we shall see. But right now, the current situation is that they've repealed the 100% zero emission new passenger car sales by 2035, which was set to start next year. They've repealed the advanced clean trucks rule, which required increasing percentages of zero emission sales of medium heavy duty trucks. And they repealed the low NOx rule to put stricter NOx emission standards on heavy trucks. So again, that there will definitely be some legal and procedural challenges on that front. On the regulatory side, EPA put out an announcement, and on the website you'll see a fact sheet that lists quite a number of rulemakings or regulations that are on the books that EPA intends to reconsider or repeal. And I'll try to do justice to at least the really critical ones and kind of touch base on all of them. But the first one that is coming is the EPA greenhouse gas rules for power plants. And they're going to be reconsidering that, and so that's one where hold on 1 second here, where the standards on could change criteria pollutant precursor levels. So the power plant rule is definitely being reconsidered. The other one is the MATS, the mercury and air toxic standards. Probably not as huge an issue for us, given we don't have a lot of coal plants left in the region, but the administration is giving kind of a 2-year relief period for that, and going to reconsider the rule. So yeah, and the Biden administration had put kind of more stringent controls on mercury in place, and they've given a 2-year relief for having to comply with that. Another one that is fairly complex and kind of messy, and both sides of the equation really, is the good neighbor SIPs. EPA has struggled with that regulation for years and trying to figure out how to deal with cross-state pollution and transport. And so, the Biden administration actually took some action at in 2023, but the current administration is going to reconsider that. So that's another one that's out there. You've probably heard word that the White House and the EPA have announced they're going to try to potentially redo the endangerment finding for greenhouse gases that led to some other regulations. It's not quite clear how they're going to do that, and it's under consideration. At some point, we shall see. And so I don't want to speculate there, but that could be. I think it would be fairly tough for them to do, but they're going to try it, and we shall see. Another one is the regional haze program. It sounds as if they're going to be rolling back some requirements, and a lot of this is focused on a lot of the regulatory rollback is around trying to remove regulatory requirements for coal plants. So again, not a massive deal for our region, given we have more natural gas plants now, but clearly, upwind states that have coal plants that would be allowed to have less controls could make a difference in our region. So let me look here. There's going to be a reconsideration of the fine particle NAAQS, the PM 2.5 NAAQS. That's probably going to take some time, so not an immediate one. The National Emission Standards for Hazardous Air Pollution, NESHAPs, they're going to be taking a look at that. And they had announced that they're going to reconsider all the light, medium, heavy duty vehicle regulations, but with the Senate action, it's already kind of partly done through that action, but I think that there'll continue to be efforts made by the EPA to make things less stringent and to not push as much for the electric vehicle future. So I think that's pretty much the summary. And so again, seeking some guidance on where you see MWRAQ's role, what you'd like to comment on or not, et cetera. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff. I've got two questions that are broad. First, from a legal standpoint, what is the process by which reconsideration occurs? I assume that they have to go through some sort of rulemaking process to undo the current rules. Am I mistaken on how that works?
Yeah, that's my understanding. They would have to come up, to go on the record and do public, comment periods and all the like that would go into a rulemaking, and subject to legal challenges as well. So,
well, my general feeling is, to the extent that we prioritize these items, MWAQC should be encouraging our state jurisdictions to fight vigorously on the priority items, to the extent that there's public comment, litigation, et cetera. My second question: are there any of these items that states can enact on their own, and have any of the three jurisdictions already enacted some of these provisions at the state level?
yeah, Tom and Roger, Joseph, if you guys have any input on that, I think and I'm going to be cautious in what I say because I'm not sure. So, Tom, Roger, you guys have any input on that?
I was thinking there was something in Maryland on the trucks, but I could be wrong. I know the air.
Well, yeah, that gets down to the Senate action on that waiver. So California, under the Clean Air Act, has the authority to adopt more stringent controls on vehicles, and then other states can opt in, but EPA has to give a waiver. And that's where the Senate parliamentarian, said, hey, you can't use the CRA to deal with the waiver because it wasn't a regulation, and the CRA is about regulations, and they decided to ignore that. And so
understood, but I thought Maryland might have taken action on that on its own. I could be wrong. It might just be implementing the federal rule.
Yeah, they would opt into the California program, the Clean Cars program, but they, I guess, theoretically can't opt into it if EPA didn't grant the waiver, which they did grant, but now the Senate's taken the grant of the waiver away. So,
yeah, just to add to that, this is Tom. It's really, you know, any state has the ability to adopt the California rules through the Section 177 of the Clean Air Act. What Jeff is saying is basically is that underlying authority to do that through the waiver would go, if that were to go away, then the states wouldn't have that ability to continue those programs.
Thank you. Comments from other folks?
Yes, Mrs. Denoga.
Mr. Washburn.
Yes, I want to add my support to your comment about the need to fight very vigorously on some of these things, because air quality impacts affect everybody. Okay, there are some political forces and views that would that if they had their way would try to sow a lot of confusion about the right to clean air being some kind of quote unquote DEI issue. And we're talking, you know, and as I think you made clear, and others, you know, air quality affects everybody. Bad air does not stop at a particular zip code, does not stop at a particular state line. And hopefully the major jurisdictions represented in COG will see their way to, you know, if necessary, aligning or uniting with other affected states to deal with some of these issues. And I'm bringing this up too because, particularly with respect to the data centers, while we don't have a lot of coal plants still operating in the region, a lot of these data centers are accessing fossil fuel in the guise of gas-powered generators, and those do emit certain kinds of pollutants, and they contribute to smog. So that's really something I think we all need to keep our eye on. The other thing is the doing away with incentives for clean electric vehicles. One thing that I guess people in certain high places in and you know don't quite understand is that taking the United States out of the game in terms of producing vehicles for the electric market simply means that when things shift back, the U.S. is going to wind up having to buy cars, having to buy clean technology from manufacturers in other countries that haven't had that ball and chain put on them. So I just want to raise these issues for everybody's concern, and we definitely need to monitor very closely any rulemaking that is done by EPA in these areas.
Thank you, Mr. Washburn. Others?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would second all of that. I absolutely agree that we need to be pushing back in all the areas we can, especially on some of these priority pieces. It would be great if we could, as we get these updates, if part of the updates could also be to the question that you raised earlier, what are our options for pushing back when there's a weakening of regulations on the horizon? You know, having an answer ready to some of those questions about what can we do. Are there options for strengthening regulations at the state level? Are there potential legal avenues that we could be looking at? If we could kind of make that a regular part of getting these updates about potential federal changes, that would be helpful.
Thank you. I mean, I'm almost wondering if we should be drafting a letter now addressing the overall effort by the administration. One of the things that I find offensive, if you read the press release, Mr. Zeldin, I guess EPA Administrator Zeldin, says that this is a climate change religion, which is a rather offensive statement coming from conspiracy theorists. I'm just wondering if we should write to our congressional delegations or some other appropriate body and say that we're very concerned about this press release and the intent to reconsider very critical environmental protections that are going to have a serious health damage on, well, I'm not sure what number we want to use, but say millions of residents of this region. So we could do a letter now to start things off, or we could wait until we see individual reconsiderations occurring and weigh in on a piecemeal basis.
If I might, I would strongly suggest that we at least, if MWAC decides to send some sort of correspondence, is to identify key members on the Senate subcommittee dealing as far as budget and as far as environment, and sort of begin cultivating some of these members to serve as champions, as especially as this budget bill that the Senate is looking at goes forward. I think Senator Thune has already said they're unlikely to take final action on this budget before July the 4th. So we do have some time.
Judge Yakuta?
I was going to say, given what we've heard about the timing of some of these proposals, we may not be able, this might be our last meeting before the proposals come down. So I would just wanted to get out on the record that I think any rollbacks of vehicle standards and possibly the rollback of the particulate matter next would be the ones of most concern as far as our view. But anything that is piecemeal would probably have to be triaged, since I would expect a flood. I don't know. I guess COG staff, do we have from what I understand, we've only really sent letters to EPA or other federal agencies on these types of topics before. I'm kind of curious what the history is.
Yeah, well, certainly we've commented to EPA, particularly when there's an active docket with public comments. And it's been a while, but I think it's possible that MWAC has also sent letters to the congressional delegation or subcommittee members and the like. It's been quite a number of years since anything like that has happened, but
it's been quite a number of years since anything like this has happened.
Yeah. Yes, right.
I think Mr. Yakuta hit what I thought were the priorities, which is the vehicle standards and particulate matter items. They're the ones that jump out the most. If you were to prioritize, that's ones that I see. Mr. Snyder turned his camera on. Does that mean you want to add to the comments, Dave?
No, just I think I was impressed with the comment that a lot of this stuff may be put in place before we meet again. So I'm thinking maybe a general letter outlining the health concerns and otherwise setting forth, science-based issues as we see them with regard to the most concerning of the actions would be appropriate. So I guess I originally started thinking, well, let's just wait until each thing is considered, but I was impressed with the comment that a lot of this may happen before we meet again. So I don't want to. I think we should avoid rhetoric. I think we should just focus on here's what the science says. Air has gotten better as a result of these actions, many of which are going to be reversed. When the air gets better, it means people don't get sick as much, which means that healthcare costs don't rise as much. So I would make some very logical science-based arguments and then outline the ones that are of particular concern and forward it through the appropriate COG channels to our congressional delegation. So thanks.
That makes tremendous sense. I guess one of the questions I would have is, what is the process for us authorizing a letter, let's call it, when we don't meet again? So we can do it through email, or who all has to sign off on it? What's the process, Jeff?
Yeah, so there's a number of ways you could do it. You could vote to authorize you as chair to sign. You could vote to authorize the executive committee to take action. You could vote to authorize or appoint a special subcommittee, temporary subcommittee to review. There's a number of different ways, and I had the same thought of, we're not meeting until September. If any of this stuff has to happen, it's probably a subset of this group or the executive committee. I think typically it was done with the executive committee.
Yeah, I was going to suggest executive committee. We have myself and 3 vice chairs, right?
Yeah, and the state air agencies participate in that as well.
And this is Jen. I can jump in on this and how we've done it in the past. And yes, we have gone through the executive committee. They are authorized to act on behalf of MWAC when there are no meetings. So we do have that in place, and they have done this exact same thing in the past.
Jen has the answer.
There you go.
But I believe we should have a motion with direction, right?
So I would move that the staff draft and the executive committee review and submit on MWAC's behalf a letter based upon science, non-rhetorical, that lays out the issues with certain federal proposals that may have the effect of harming air quality.
Second. This is
We have a
Kristen.
motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we'll consider that motion for a letter to be drafted by staff and approved by the executive committee to have been adopted. And I think we're going to now move on to the ozone season update. And for Jen and Jeff, for some reason, my computer's not charging. I'm now down into the battery danger zone. So I'm going to turn my camera off in a second and try to find electricity. Hopefully I won't get dropped.
Okay.
So moving on to the ozone season update. The ozone season kicked off in April. Forecasts are being issued daily to the public through the COG website, the Clean Air Partners website and mobile app, and EPA's EnviroFlash email system. And now we're going to hear an update from Sunil Kumar on how the region is doing thus far and updates to the forecast regions. So we'll turn to Sunil.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I will present the summary of this data for this current ozone season, which is started in March. So what you're looking at is a table of peak 8-hour average ozone levels in parts per billion, or ppb in short, for March 1st through May 13th. So you can see most of the days we had code green, a few of them in code yellow. But again, this is just the start of the season. Typically, we have the high values in in June, July, August, and early September. So we're just getting started on this season here. But luckily, we didn't have any ozone accidents, as you can see here in this 3 tables. So show you the trend in the ozone accidents day from 1997 onwards till this year. and this chart shows the number of code orange, red, and purple days, and also the total ozone excellence days on top of each of those bars. And as you can see, we have made quite a bit of progress since late 90s. We don't see any code purple and hardly any code red nowadays. So if you're looking at the last few years, we had significantly lower number of ozone exchange days compared to late 90s or early 2000s. This year we didn't have any ozone accidents so far. Again, this shows the trend in the ozone and the temperature. There are typically very good relations between them. Usually the higher the temperature, the higher the ozone, and which is pretty much reflected in the late 90s, early 2000s, as you can see here in this chart. The purple line shows the excellence days, the red line the number of 90 degrees days and over, and there was a fairly good relationship between those two variables until 2008. And from 1997 and 2008, what we saw, there were a lot more accident days compared to the 90-degree days. And the result, and the reason, one of the reasons was the emission levels were so high, it didn't take much temperatures, much heat to generate lots of ozone and go into accidents. Starting 2009, the trend just reversed. Now we see a lot less ozone accident days, irrespective of the number of ozone day, numbers of high 90-degree days. And so as you can see, even though number of 90-degree days remain high, or they vary a lot across the different years, but the number of reduction in ozone exchange is quite telling here. The line is not as smooth, but overall it looks like we pretty much very low compared to the late 90s, early 2000s. So far this year, we didn't have any 90-degree days and no ozone accidents days, but as I said, May has been very cool this year, but the trend will not continue. We will see the next week or so starting. We will see some high temperature, and we'll see how the ozone acts. So this chart shows the trend in the ozone design value. Those of you who are not familiar with design value concept, this is the parameter EPA uses to decide whether areas attain the standard or not. And if that number exceeds 70 ppb or above, then we go into non-compliance with the standard, which is right now the standard is 70 parts per billion. As you can see, we've made quite a bit of progress in late 90s, early 2000s, and line is smooth again. But you can see there's a pretty strong downward trend, and however, that has kind of seems to have plateaued starting 2015. We see number varying between 70 and 72. There was a big drop in 2022, but that was all related to some of the effects of the COVID-19 restrictions and closures and things like that. 2023, again, we saw a large wildfires coming from, the smoke coming from the Canada, and that carried, lots of precursors of ozone, leading to the increase in ozone levels in our area. And so, however, as you can see here, based on the last 21 through 2023 design value, which is 70 parts per billion, and even though the published value published by EPA is 71 parts per billion, but because there was mentioned before that EPA recently granted us the waiver for the exceptional events, and as a result, the 71 ppb mark came down to 70 ppb. We were able to attain the standard by the attainment deadline, and now as a result, we can move forward with our maintenance plan, which will demonstrate that we'll keep meeting the standard even in the future. So thus we have attained the standard, so that's a good news. And we have, as I said, we continue to work on our maintenance plan to get redesignated to attainment and our maintenance area for this current standard. Again, the reason for why we have seen so few accident days now is that all the emission control programs that were implemented at the federal, state, and local levels, and these are some of the examples, not the whole list, but just few of the examples of the emission control programs. So I'm not going to go into this. You have this chart here. You can go through that. But just to kind of give you very quick examples. For example, we have tier 2 vehicle rules, heavy duty diesel vehicle, NOx SIP call, state level vehicle inspection and maintenance program, Healthy Air Act, renewable energy programs at the local level, so energy efficiency programs. So those programs really helped us a lot in bringing the ozone design value down to where it is now. So moving forward to the PM 2.5 or fine particle levels, these are all in micrograms per cubic meter based on 24-hour average values. Again, the data is from March 1st through May 13th. Just like ozone, we're seeing a lot more green and a lot less yellow now. This shows again progress on this front as well. And this slide shows the trend in the PM 2.5 incidence days, and compared to late 90s, early 2000s, we really make a huge progress on this front, and we started to see that many years now where there are no accidents, not even a single accidents, either even code orange or anything. In 2023, you see that seems to be an exception here, but that the reason was that we had this impact from the Seoul wildfire coming from Canada that impacted our area. But again, in 2024, didn't have an accident. So far, we didn't have an accident. So the good story continues on the PM 2.5 front. As far as the trend in the annual PM 2.5 design value is concerned, remember that PM 2.5 has two standard, one on an annual basis, another on the 24-hour average basis. So what you're looking at then on the annual PM 2.5 design value, and that is at the current standard is at 9.0 microgram per cubic meter. Similar to ozone, we made tremendous progress on this front until 2016 when Scarlet Duquesne plateau. We are right now at 8.9 microgram per cubic meter, which is just 1/10 of a below the standard. But so we continue to keep an eye on this in this season, and I'll see to make sure we don't go up again. And this is for the 24-hour PM 2.5 design value. The standard didn't change. It remains at 35 microgram, which was published in 2006. Similar to ozone or annual PM 2.5, the 24-hour PM 2.5 levels also kind of plateaued in 24-25 time frame, and the numbers keep varying between 20 and 22 micrograms, as you can see in the slide. However, it is all well below the 35 microgram mark, and that shows a tremendous progress, and we are much more comfortable, as far as this particular standard is concerned. This is another way to look at the entire pollutant data, not just ozone PM 2.5, but also PM10, carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, and sulfur dioxide. For the Washington, Arlington, Alexandria, CBSA, this is a little bit larger area than Washington non-attainment area. And you're looking at the daily AQI values for the last 10 years, starting from 2016 through 2025 now. As you can see in the top rows, in 2017-18, there were a lot more yellows and a few code orange. Compared to that, in recent years, in 24-25, you're seeing a lot more code green, and a lot less yellows, and we haven't seen any code orange so far. So definitely there is a progress made on all fronts, and not just ozone and PM 2.5, but we keep continuing to make progress on all criteria pollutant. This is just to look in another way how we're doing in terms of AQI every day this year. And as you can see, most of the ozone and PM 2.5 levels fall in the good range. A few do go into the moderate range, but nothing in the code orange or code red range. So that's a good thing. This shows the AQI value trend for combined ozone and PM 2.5 on a daily basis. And as you can see, very light faded blue, we have the 24-hour highs and lows. And then you have the thick gray line, which shows 5-year average of these values. And then in the dark blue line shows the 2025 values. You can see 2025 values are overall they look lower compared to the 5-year average and definitely much lower compared to 24-year highs. So this is another way to look at the progress we have made on this front. And yes, we do have the ozone design value at 70 parts per billion, which indicates we attain the standard by the attainment deadline, and as a result, we are moving forward with the maintenance plan. But that, we are just right at that standard, and so we need to keep an eye on that in this season. As the summer folds, we're going to the thick of the ozone season in June, July, August timeframe. We need to keep an eye on that and see how design value will change, or remains below 70 or at 70 at least. So I thought I will add this slide to show what will happen and what it will take in terms of fourth highest ozone, which is what actually is used to calculate the design value. So what will be the fourth highest ozone values at the important monitors in the region that can take us again back into non-attainment. So as you can see, there is a Macmillan DC monitor, which has the 24 design value is 69 ppb. This is after excluding the June 2019-2023 data, which was granted a waiver by the EPA. And it will take 42 ppb to fourth highest value to go into non-attainment. There is a monitor in Prince George's Equestrian Center in Maryland, which has a design value of 68. It also requires 72 ppb. Bellsville is another monitor in Maryland. We need to keep an eye on it. Design value 68. Fourth highest will be 73. And then is a one monitor in Arlington. Design value is 67, the lowest among all these four, but it only needs 71 parts per billion at the fourth highest value in this year to go into non-attainment. So again, we'll be keeping an eye on this, and we'll keep you updated in terms of how we're doing in terms of compliance with the continued compliance with the standard. So that's all I have. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Sunil. Any questions? Okay, quiet group today. With that, unless there's anything else, Jennifer, Jeff, it looks like we're ready to adjourn.
Yes, we are.
Okay, so the next MWAC meeting is September 24th, as I think we discussed earlier. Thanks to everyone for participating today. May I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Sonia from Manassas.
We have a motion. Looking for a second.
Second, Jason Groff, Charles.
Okay, we're done early today. All right, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.